Why open a Detroit office? Forget it. You're doing fine. You've got good earnings, everyone's happy. When you have an outside partner, it might give you the gumption to say, why not? Let's go open a Detroit office. Let's go do an acquisition. Let's go hire some salespeople. They're all risky things that upset the apple cart of a family-owned business that without that gumption from outside capital, i.e. literally using the outside capital to be that risk capital, of course, because you've gotten money off the table in the deal you got done. That's how you get out there, and private equity can bring you ways to grow.
Welcome to the Navigating Abundance podcast. Our goal is to encourage you to pursue your total family wealth potential through insightful conversation with experts and thought leaders in their fields. But first, some obligatory disclosures. Navigating Abundance podcasts do not represent investment, legal, or tax advice. Any opinion expressed in Navigating Abundance podcast is solely those of Christopher Tanke and his guests and are based upon information believed to be reliable but not guaranteed. Podcasts are produced for educational and entertainment purposes only and should not be considered an endorsement of the guest or the views that they hold. Information shared may not be appropriate for your personal situation. Consult a qualified advisor for guidance. Investment advisory services are offered through Strategic Financial Group, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Navigating Abundance is a trademark of Strategic Financial Group, LLC. And now here's your host, Chris Tanke.
Welcome back to Navigating Abundance. I'm Chris Tanke, and today I'm delighted to have back yet again from Charter Capital Partners, Mike Palm. Welcome back, Mike.
Thanks, Chris. Excited to be back and joining in the conversation.
Yes, and I got to tell you, now we laid down a podcast with Mike about maybe 2 or 3 months ago, and we were focusing really on the investor and their consideration for should they be adding private equity to their portfolio as an alternative, and it's becoming much more of a common thing than it was maybe 10 or 15 years ago, and it was a really good podcast. I encourage you all to watch it if you're considering to do that. It was the number one podcast we had ever done by far. Michael, you're a rock star. We appreciate you coming back again.
Yeah, either it's we were that compelling, or we kept the AI bots enough engaged that they didn't click off the stream. So it's good. We'll take the views.
There you go. That
is good. There's a lot of this podcast stuff out there, and so if it's stuff that people are actually listening to, always happy to help and just pass along tidbits of information and stories.
No, I appreciate that very much. Today, we're flipping the script. We are not laying down this podcast for investors. We're laying down this podcast for business owners and entitling this, How to Prepare Your Business for a Private Equity Acquisition, right? So you're thinking, gee, maybe 3, 4, 5 years from now or whatever, I might want to sell a part of my practice or all of my business. I have different options, of course, but maybe private equity would make sense. And how should I go about preparing myself to do that? And what better way to have that question answered by talking to a PE guy that is in the business of acquiring the right firm? So I think that your knowledge on this and your experience, some of your successes, maybe even some of your failures, some of your war stories, this would be good for us today, Mike, as we talk about how to prepare a business for private equity acquisition. So thank you for willing to have a chat with us.
Absolutely.
So I jotted down 3 questions. Again, we can get off these questions. I have no problem doing that, but I jotted them down because I just can't seem to remember 3 questions at the same time. So I wanted to read some of these to you, hand over the mic, and let's have a back and forth about 3 things that a business owner might want to be asking if PE is for them in regards to a sale. And the first question is, obviously, at some point, every business is going to be sold. Why should an owner consider arranging with a PE group versus other types of suitors? Because, right, I can sell it to my competitor. I can sell it to my employees, the staff. They might want to buy it. I can sell it to my children. Or whatever. I mean, there's a lot of different ways that you can liquidate your life's work. But what does PE bring to the table? Why should a business owner consider maybe PE as another suitor?
Yeah, absolutely. And frankly, just the way you phrased the question, the concept of, for some individuals, just even the concept that their business someday might be sold is a foreign topic, and some that's just that no way this is going to get, passed on. I mean, that of course was the prior way. A lot of family businesses. That's what I'm thinking.
Right.
Ideally, this is like a family owned second or third generation business. Where do we go with it next? And so to answer your question, I think the reason you think about private equity as what it is, it's a capital source and it's a partner. But ways that individuals normally think about it, absent hearing from, say, this podcast or others that they might know who have made investments or partnered with private equity, is that it really is not black and white. It doesn't mean a black and white binary sell or not sell your company. It usually looks much more partial. It's very gray. And it's just, that's the way that most deals are done, where you might sell a minority piece of your business, less than 50%. You might sell majority. You might sell 60 or 70%. But you also, and I'm saying you, Chris, as the business owner here in this case, you might roll over as well for that other piece. So you might be, recapping the business, paying off, some debt, maybe buying out some other family members in the business, and then also rolling over with that new partner to go forward. So that's the kind of the first concept I'd say is like, don't think about it being black and white. It's just kind of like a do or die kind of mentality, because it's not. It's usually a very great thing. But why you'd want to do something like that is because nothing against you, Chris, and all that you've built with your business, but there's other outside sources of influence, help, expertise, just your ability to just multiply yourself by partnering with someone like private equity. They're going to bring a different type of a growth mindset. They're going to bring ideas to upgrade different systems or things in your business. They're going to bring ideas to help upgrade your team, hire new people. And again, I'm thinking most from our market. We're lower middle market, investors. We partner with companies. We write $2 to $8 million checks. We're doing total, deal sizes, we'll call it $10 to $50 million. We're not doing multi-billion-dollar deals. That's in the multi-billion-dollar deal world, which I don't think is our audience here today. Of course, there's private equity firms that do come in, and instead of hiring tons of employees, they could be trying to rationalize things or streamline the business. In our world, we're getting out there trying to find ways to hire people, expand geographies, those things. And different than what you, Chris, I'm going to keep using you as the example because it's just easy. Chris might be thinking, when you go, you've got a good business, it's running, it's fine. Why do you have to worry about expanding? Say, we're in West Michigan. Why open a Detroit office? Forget it. You're doing fine. You've got good earnings, everyone's happy. But when you have an outside partner, it might give you the gumption to say, why not? Let's go open a Detroit office. Let's go do an acquisition. Let's go hire some salespeople. They're all risky things that upset the apple cart of a family-owned business. That without that gumption from outside capital, i.e., literally using the outside capital to be that risk capital, of course, because you've gotten money off the table in the deal you got done. That's how you get out there, and private equity can bring you ways to grow.
Wow, that's a lot to unpack. There's a lot of opportunity there. Can I ask you this question, Mike? In the deals that you guys do, how many of these are basically total buyouts versus you're buying into some partnership? How much is no, cut me a check, I'm out, or do a structured settlement, I'm out in 5 years, but it's all yours. So therefore, a lot of what you just discussed is not so much my concern as a business owner. I'm just looking for a way out. What percentage of your acquisitions are those kind of things versus no, actually, it's more of a relationship we're entering into because we're only partial owners, or what the case might be?
Because the businesses we're investing in are smaller compared to the huge, say, $500 million, $1 billion plus deals, I would say zero are 100% exits. There's very few. Rollover and sellers having some skin in the game going forward also means that having these conversations and thinking about exit should start earlier and earlier, because when you come to market or go find a partner, they're going to say, Chris, you're great and we like your team, but if you're saying you want to work just part-time, that's fine. We can do that, but we got to stage it out. You got to, you can go to part-time after we close, but then to go fully out of the business, it's going to take a few years. You've got to help us with that transition.
Right.
And so that's where you get your quote, second bite of the apple. It's one of our favorite phrases in private equity space, where, we're selling the business again down the road. And then that kind of becomes your full exit, which is a wild concept. And are ways that, people can say, that's, and sellers do that. They put a line in the sand and say, that's it. I am not doing anything. We're going to close on Friday and I'm not showing up on Monday. But I'll tell those sellers that their business is going to be worth less
For
to
sure.
buyers, because we're going to wonder, what do you know that you're not willing to tell us? So it's usually, it's very typical that there's some rollover.
Yeah, I certainly think that would be critical. You're going to be selling at a discount if you want out quickly. And even if everything is totally fine, there's nothing nefarious going on. It's your relationships, it's your team, it's your processes for all of your clientele to get a letter saying, "Hey, I'm in the Bahamas now. Here's talk to Mike." I mean, it's going to be like, what?
We,
So there's retention is going to be a serious problem in
there
that
are
kind of a thing.
we had one sellers, they literally did the post close. This is before Zoom. This was 10 plus years ago. And they did it down in Hilton Head at their new, ocean house or something. And that deal didn't end up going very well, unfortunately. The point being is that, they had already checked out. That was part of the deal. And so I said zero, but the vast majority, if not almost all, there's every now and then there might be some reason for it, but most times there's some sort of rollover.
So it's really best to start this process, this consideration, years before you lose your heart for the business or you become a lame duck, because at some point there is a life cycle of a business, like a life cycle to everything. And you're going to go from building to just maintaining. And then after a while, that's going to demoralize you and you just want out. If you want out, that's fine. But I'm hearing to say that we might want to have conversation 8 to 10 years, even before you're thinking about doing that, so we can help with the glide path. You can get the highest value for your firm, your business, because it's still vibrant, you're still involved, and then let's work together on a transition phase.
Yeah, exactly. And so some of those conversations, because making assumptions about where you're going to go with an exit, or if you're going to exit, again, like to even start the question was like the if is the first question, but then once the decision to exit is there, where it goes is a question. There's lots of alternatives. The fact that, and again, we're thinking of just the example kind of being a family-owned business that might be second, third generation. Family businesses don't always just get passed down to kind of the next generation, and that kind of was historically the case. I'm speaking in wide generalizations, but if you think back to, say, the 1980s, it's a different landscape right now. The world has changed massively in the last 40 to 50 years with what children, as they're coming up, what they see, what they can do, just the mobility in this country in general. If I live here today, I could go live someplace else. I mean, people are very free to move out the country, as Southwest has encouraged us. But the idea is that, just growing up in the 60s, 70s, and 80s of, oh, okay, that's mom and dad's business, I'm going to just go do that. Now it's, look at the whole world's in front of me. I've got this is before the internet. This is before you mentioned YouTubers and all that kind of stuff. Don't even start me with what, 12-year-olds want to go and do with their lives when they see all the YouTube crazy stuff. So that just changes people's opinions. And mom and dad might feel sad at first that that's just not what their offspring want to do. But oftentimes there's still other great homes for the business.
Yeah, definitely a lot easier to get off the farm nowadays than it was 50 years ago.
That's exactly my point.
A lot more options.
There's a lot of options, and they're all right there. They're a click away. You can see them.
Mike, this is sort of a side conversation here, but I do want to spend a few minutes on this because the power of the second bite of the apple. Again, this goes to bat for the idea of start 8, 10, 12 years before you think you might want to be totally out. Talk about that. Let's stroke that a little bit because it's such a powerful thing. Mike Walters of USA Financial Securities, when we had him on, he talked about that. Can you lay that out? Why PE guys get so excited and what some of the real value of working with PE produces? The second bite of the apple.
I would say, to benefit my own position and role, I would say the second bite of the apple, to your point, is so important. And, blah, 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 Chris, we're going to make you just as much money, if not more, at the next exit. And, despite my blah, blah, blah there, that actually kind of is almost true. There's a lot of sellers that make more money on that second because it gets invested with a private firm that is they're taking swings. They're trying to load the bases and then just crank one sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't work out well. But they're taking the risk. So it is actually impressive to see and hear about how those things work. However, against my role and where I sit, but to the benefit of your listeners and your clients, get all the money you need in the first bite. And almost every seller I know that didn't do a deal with me necessarily because they don't want to laugh at me and be that honest, but other people I know that have sold businesses, or family members that have sold businesses, or extended family, they've always said, yeah, I don't know, they had me roll over some stuff, but I don't need that. If that works, that's just gravy. So, and that usually is the case. So, defend yourself, defend your balance sheet, get what you need in that initial transaction. And then everything else from there is just gravy. Not that it's at risk and go away, but that is just kind of like the secret advice I would give is that most people I talk to, get what they need at that first deal. And they say, I don't need anything else down the road.
Right. And the value that we've all backed into as business owners is our equity. I mean, cash flow is great. That's lovely. But it's the equity piece, which is the payday for most business owners. And sometimes that payday is 20 or 30 years in coming. So, right, if I just sell a portion off, initially 40% or whatever, 30%, whatever it is, as I'm having partnership, new ideas with a PE group, and I'm just really actually enjoying life, frankly, because of all the synergy and stuff. I'm being energized again. When it comes time to sell my other 60%, 7 or 8 years down the road, it's going to be worth more than the firm was, hopefully, in total 100%, 7 or 8 years previous. There's the second bite of the apple, right? So, the idea is hold on to your equity as long as you can, generally, as long as the world works the way it should. Because that's where your value is. And that's where the second bite of the apple really can be an amazing, wonderful thing that is, I said, all the sweeter when you're dealing with folks that can actually prod you or provide you opportunities for the business to grow just by the nature of what they bring to the table as partners with you, as it were.
Gumption is what I call it.
Gumption?
Nothing against Chris and Chris running his business and having a simple and having enough, which is great. That's awesome. But a lot of business owners just, and I don't blame them. They're just lifestyle businesses. They don't, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's amazing. That's an awesome feat of success. It's the epitome of capitalism and the American dream to have a lifestyle business like that. Mm-hmm. But when someone comes in and wants to bring their own capital, amen, because they're risking their money, not yours. Yes, I get it, the rollover, but still, again, I just told you, get everything at your first deal. But they're going to pour gasoline on the fire. That's and the odds are it's not a 50-50. It is, give me experience where they're trying to go with things. They're backing you and your company because there's things about it that they really like. That the chances are that it could might not shoot the moon, but it could at least double or triple in value.
Right. That's right. So this brings into the next question, right? What can business owners do to make their businesses more attractive? One of the things is, and I hadn't thought about this. We could talk about some of the other ones, of course, but I hadn't thought about this one. One of the ways to make myself attractive is to make sure that my attitude is right in wanting to be prodded a bit. If this is something there's a 10-year sunset, I'm going to sell 40% of it now. I better be ready to kind of reinvent the way I look at things, because now there are other folks in the family, right? Yeah.
Sorry, what do you mean other folks in the family? Then?
Well, you all. I mean, you buy 40%. Yeah. All of a sudden, it's like, gee whiz, you might want to talk to me every once in a while, or you might have some ideas or whatever. So if I'm going to make myself attractive to you guys to purchase a certain part of my firm, my attitude better be right, that I have enough time and I have enough interest to actually work with other people to improve, versus no, this is the way it's always been done before. I don't want to have conversation with people. That, I mean, I would think that would be a super red flag for you to work with somebody like.
So I would flip it a little bit. I would just say, pretend you're selling 60% versus 40. There's definitely firms that do 40 in minority deals, but just more of them are going to do 60 because they'll just want majority so they can control the destiny and go do things. Again, they have your rollover capital for the other 40% or whatever you do roll. And that's just as exciting. But yeah, there's definitely a changing of thinking about how, well, even when you say prodding, just getting prodded for due diligence. I mean, that's a whole nother mentality shift where you haven't had to answer these annoying questions.
That's
You
right.
just run your business. And I tell you, it's never ending. As I say, we ask endless questions. And then the final one is, what's your wiring instructions? And we close. And we send you a nice big wire, usually at that day. And so that's exciting. But what it takes to get there and what private equity firms are looking for is all over the map. There's some very generic, simple things I can get to in a second, but the odd thing also is that there's different private equity firms. There's different firms with different strategies, everything you can imagine. One of my favorite firms their strategy is to buy literally the number one or number two company in a space in a completely overlooked industry. And I can't recall exactly how they determine overlooked, but for example, there's a company that church bulletins. So Sunday morning, there's a church bulletin. There's different companies that program and put all that together, and they go to the different churches and it's a content system, but they help print all those and get them all kicked out. And it's some sort of a software and printing company, and completely overlooked industry as this private equity firm say, but they own the one company in this country that does that. That's just like a funny example of, you might be surprised. There's a home for every single business, as nuanced as you think you might be. There's another group that they literally, they solely seek out blue collar owners, as they call them. We want operators that are blue collar, and we're going to partner with them. That's our specialty, because their backgrounds are in the labor and blue collar space, and they say, that's us. We want to find them. And so there's very unique ways to go and find those kinds of buyers. Beyond those more unique strategies, the general things that make your business attractive, and I'll say, if I haven't said it yet, I guess, but when you talk to an advisor about valuing your business, they will help you look at these different things. We put together a slide. Our advisory group essentially would say, basically, we call it value drivers and detractors. So here's kind of your business across a bunch of different paradigms. Here's things that are driving its value, and here's things that are detracting from its value. And not all those things you can fix. Some of them will be things you can fix, where maybe you have a real estate footprint that has a questionable environmental thing. Okay, great. Get the phase 2 finished, put that in a bow. Got it. Maybe you have part of your organization where you've had an empty spot in HR for a number of years. Okay, let's get it filled. Let's check that box. Let's move on. But other things that are harder to drive value at might be, or harder to fix, for lack of a better term, would be, say, a customer concentration. John Doe Company has been your biggest customer at 12% of your revenue or 20% of your revenue for 20 plus years. And it's just, to change that dynamic in a short period of time is very tough. Things that get firms excited are low customer concentration, are continuity and management teams, having a full team that runs the business, but then also a team of lieutenants, as we call them, the tier below. Obviously, like I said, I would say the generic things like, decent, strong EBITDA margins, but which is essentially a proxy for cash flow, some sort of a defendable product position, an understanding of competitor status, where competitors are, how a company wins. We will ask that often of a management team. We say, how do you win? Tell us specifically what makes it a winning solution, a winning product, a winning team, winning company, that kind of thing. Ways to describe that is important. And so there's a number of these things, and there's a lot of ways to look at, a company, because again, it's there's just all sorts of different fixtures. If you're working with an advisor to help take you to market, they will come up with these things as, again, like the drivers and detractors that you can think through and try to improve upon as you get out to go approach potential partners. And that, honestly, those things I just described, they really go for any type of a buyer. So
that's true too. Right. Okay. Let's switch this a little bit here. Let's say somebody is currently being courted, and they might be on the first or second date with a PE firm. And there's a lot to consider, because a lot of the things that you laid out from your end, what you're looking for, as you're kicking the tires of a potential suitor. Of course, so is the business owner kicking the tires of potential suitors. How do they begin evaluating whether or not I want to end up getting married with a PE firm. How do I determine? Can you give us some pointers on how a business owner might determine whether or not this is a good relationship for me, or this is a good culture for me to be involved with? Or, yeah, to me, I think that's a very large decision to make on a business owner's side.
So I'll get to the reference check part of it, but before you there, I mean, just the initial point: are they really being courted? That's the big thing. Are you really being courted? Because I'll tell you, the emails that are out there, they're everywhere. They're nuts. They're drip campaigns. I'm sorry. I know you were flattered. They love you. They want you.
Yeah,
That's a drip campaign, and if you don't respond to it, it's just going to get another email the following week. I had a friend of mine. She forwarded an email, and she sent it to me, like on a Wednesday. But the email had come on a Monday or something at like 3 a.m. Eastern time, which would technically, and the email came out of a group out of Europe. So it's 3 a.m. Eastern time. You're backing into, you're like, okay, so this technically means the email came at like, it was a weekend hour situation where I'm like, this person was sending emails from Europe on the Sunday. My understanding is that's not normally a thing Europeans do. And then you go and look at the person's name and you go to LinkedIn and you realize, okay, well, 10 years ago, they were a bartender. Now they're working at this financial advisory firm and they're just trying to find business targets. And this person said a lot of nice things about your industry. And I do feel like they know, I don't know if they've done their homework, but they at least said it. They knew some key words to say, but that was kind of about it. And so sure enough, she kind of paused, and as flattered as she was when she read my email, she's like, that was it. I mean, this person, this doesn't make any sense. So the first thing is, are you really being courted?
Yeah. And if I had $1 for every time someone emails me saying, Chris, I've seen Strategic Financial Group's website. I'm very impressed with your holistic approach. Sounds like you're the perfect fit for us. Let's talk. And I'm like, yeah, delete. So, but if you do, right? If you do go on a date, and then, you speed date at first, I guess, but actually you do go on a date and you're starting to talk, and you're saying, well, there may be some potential here, but still, wow, there's a long road yet before you make that decision. How do I approach that? What are some things I'm looking for, I should be looking for, to make sure that our match is going to be made in heaven?
So first, get things that when you're courting, you want to get them to an offer. They might say things. They want to do some diligence. They want to look at some things. You don't need to give them the sun, the moon, and the stars. You can just give them enough, even just hearsay. You can say, yeah, our revenue is X and our EBITDA, our profitability is Y. It's this margin. We're growing this way. That takes care of the financial picture. All subject to diligence. If you're lying, of course, they're going to peel back the onion and say, well, what the heck is this? So don't lie. Obviously. But the point is, like, they don't need to know your entire customer list. Like, well, okay, we have one company that's 12% of our revenue. That's our largest customer. Okay, great. They don't need to peel into that stuff, especially because you can't just be giving anyone that can sign an NDA. And so you don't need to just be giving your information out to everybody. So as things progress, pretty quickly say, like, are you ready to an offer or not? And it doesn't have to be, it's not a binding offer. It's just, this is what we think the business is worth. They need to put it on paper. A lot of times, many times, we hear an organization or an investor say something like they're going to pay X in value. And then when that letter is actually written, it comes back at a different number. It's usually lower, of course. Mm-hmm. So do get things in writing, because sometimes people go on a few dates, 4 dates, and then it goes nowhere. And it turns out it's just because it was all for nothing. But with nothing on paper, you don't really know what you're working towards. As you get further and you have an offer, and whether it's signed up and they're doing diligence on you, and now it's your turn to do diligence on them, you have open outcry to ask them whatever questions you would like about their business, how they operate, who they are, who they work with, how they interact with their companies, reporting rhythm, reporting cycles, what they need, when they expect to have board meetings, all these things. But then and you can take that for what it's worth. And obviously, again, they shouldn't be lying either, so it should be a transparent conversation. But then if it is a private equity firm, their website will list all of their portfolio companies. Find ways to talk to those companies. LinkedIn is a great resource to find people that have worked with these people. Common connections on LinkedIn with the people that you're talking to at the firm. Common connections with portfolio company CEOs. And then if that doesn't work, find other people you know, or work with people to through your own connections to get to those people. Then the two routes you go there, one would be, for Chris to just pick up the phone and say, "Hey, Joe, my name's Chris. I'm, and you could describe who you are real quick in 30 seconds. Say, I'm talking to ABC Private Equity." And they'll freeze and say, "Well, Chris, what's going on?" I'll be like, well, how's it been? And you'll be surprised, as from one business owner to another, they will give you information. Mm-hmm. Now, some business owners will say, "Whoa, I don't want to be telling anybody I'm talking to ABC Private Equity, because then they know I'm for sale." That's fine too. Then just find a friend, find someone that you trust to say, "Hey, Mike, could you call ABC Private Equity and just say, see what you can find out?" And sure, no problem doing that. And I'm in the space, but you don't need, you could have, really anyone could do it. Your attorney could do it, your accountant could do it, your wealth manager could do it. But just the concept again is that you find someone, say, "Hey, I'm talking to, one of a close colleague of mine is talking to ABC Co. You're one of their portfolio companies. You've been a CEO of one of their businesses for 6 years. How's it been?" And just see where it goes. Mm-hmm. And I've always said, our website has our portfolio companies on it. People can know what companies, what boards I'm on and whatnot. You should, if I'm looking to partner with you, I should have no qualms if you say, "Hey, Mike, I'm going to call these 3 companies." Like, great, give them a call and I'll get you the information. That if you do, then, and of course, everything I just said basically is the unofficial route. But as we know, when it comes to references, the unofficial route usually is the best way to get the best information. But if you go the official route, yeah, they'll probably have a list for you. If they don't, that's a huge red flag. Or if they're squeamish about it, that's also a red flag. So those are the ways that you want to vet things out, by talking to the real people that have done a deal with this firm, so you know what you're getting into.
Super good advice there, ladies and gentlemen. Super good advice. All right, coming in for a landing, Michael. Is there anything that maybe we didn't cover that you're wondering about, or do you think that's a good 101 for preparing your business for PE? Any area we might want to stroke a little more?
I think, have an advisor. Whether your advisor is an investment banker or your advisor is your attorney, someone you've trusted for a while. Private equity firms sell everyone. We in the deal world, this is all we do 24/7. So yeah, we know real quick to get up to speed in term sheets and legal documents. And you know what? You're a brilliant business owner and you've grown in a fantastic operation. It's fine to not know all the nuances of this term sheet, this LOI. It's fine. Don't, but do take it to your attorney that you trust. Do trust him to bill you for a couple hours to review it. It's definitely behooves you to do that, and it's worth it's money well spent. And have that advisor to bounce ideas off of. Do at some point make sure it is an advisor that does a good amount of M&A, so they can go toe to toe with the other attorneys that will be in the room. But do get an advisor so you have help. But then behind the scenes, these are all the other things that you're doing to either get the business ready, to have real conversations, ferret out fake conversations, and then do reference checks when you need them.
Yes. Rule number 1 is you do not know what you do not know. So make sure don't go in there with bravado, being the man, being the woman. It's like, yeah. You can't pretend here, right? Bring people in that this is their space. You need to become adept at understanding, but you cannot be the expert. You're not bright enough to be the expert. You're just not. You're much more brilliant in other areas, but a little humility is going to go a long way, right? To first of all, work with people that can explain this to you, and then enough, let them handle the minutia, the fine print of it. That's just, hopefully, everybody's listening to this is sort of like you're preaching to the choir, because that's how I got where I'm at, right? Is that I don't do everything because I'm not good at everything.
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm not good at running your business. That's why I do what I do. Okay.
That's
I
right.
have no interest in running your business too down the road. So that's why I'm the expert in that little thing I do in the M&A world and not your business. And that's why we want to retain you and have you roll over and be part of it going forward. But that's also why you want to have other people to help you. And to your point on knowing or not knowing, we call it it's Ronald Reagan 101, just trust but verify.
Mm-hmm.
No one should ever be putting you in like a pressure situation, but you've got an LOI and Joe Private Equity is saying, yeah, no, don't worry, Chris, it's this and this. And that's how the earnout works. And this is how the rollover equity is going to work. Say, oh, Chris, hey, hold on, Joe, I got you. I got to run it past my attorney, Gary. And obviously he's not going to have a problem with that. So just make sure you trust but verify.
And if he does, run away.
Right? If he does, run away.
So there you go. Right.
And then you save yourself so much time. You back to running your business.
Yeah. Yeah. There still is, it's a dangerous thing to say as I come in for a closing, but there still is an amount of handshake to this. But as you said before you get anything official, you probably should have a pretty good feel for the individual, for the organization, both as a seller and a buyer. Obviously, you're going to substantiate these things, but you're probably going to have a pretty good feel before you get way deep in this, whether or not it's going to work. Kind of a handshake kind of feel to things, which I think is refreshing, because in the end, it's still people, and it's still about especially if you're going to get married in such a fashion like this, it's about respect and trust. And a lot of that is determined before the lawyers are heavily involved with producing the documents. And I think that's great. And I would say if that case like creeps out a PE firm that they want to be far more formal than that, I'd be like, yeah, well, not you. There's other suitors for me.
Yeah, it's important to get to know them for sure. And as we say, break bread, have dinners, meet multiple times. Understand how they operate, who they are. Get the dinners. When we have dinners, we like to talk about not business. That's the rule. I want to hear about families and hobbies and kids. And there is a notion of someone who's selling their business where, as much as we want them to be involved still to transition or roll over and help us with some exit, some growth planning. We do love sometimes to know that you've got some hobbies, that maybe you've got some grandkids, or you're trying to work on your handicap, or you can't wait till, it's fly fishing season, that kind of thing. So it's always good to know. And then we have those things too. We're also human. So you got to have that connectivity. Sometimes you will deal with firms that are sitting in, I'll pick on, right, where I used to live in Chicago, where, yeah, Chris knows, we'll email you a letter and let's hop on a Zoom. And you never meet them in person. They don't come to visit. It's like, well, then they're just kind of doing a drive-by. And that's never going to be good. And then you're meeting them at the very, very towards the end, and that's no fun.
Well, it doesn't.
Meet them on the front.
Yeah, it doesn't pave a path for ongoing relationships and communications, because essentially, and it's just like any marriage, every once in a while something might go wrong and you got to fix it. Sure want to have a relationship before you're involved with that process. I'll tell you that. So how about that? For all the high tech and advancement we made, a lot of this still is, a handshake world. I would suggest, again, to a degree, that's the way you begin to assess. So that's really good. Michael, people can contact you. We'll put your contact information up. I should say, is it okay if they contact you if they want to talk any further?
Drop a line, and happy to provide quick and free and unsolicited advice. I mean, that's what this is. Everybody needs people in their corner, especially if we're, talking about people that are local to us here. Always happy to help. And then really anywhere though. So.
No, I appreciate that. I appreciate you. Appreciate you investing some time in our audience. Ladies and gentlemen, again, thank you for listening to this episode of Navigating Abundance, all about preparing your business for private equity acquisition. And until we meet again, remember, your family is worth it.
Thank you for joining us for today's episode of Navigating Abundance. If you found this information useful or helpful in any way, let us know in the comments section below. If you'd like to see more content like this and follow our podcast, you can find us on all major podcast platforms. If you're interested in working with today's guests, you can find their information in the description of this podcast. If you'd like to know more about Navigating Abundance and how we may help you, or find more resources related to what we do, you can find those at navigatingabundance.com.